In May 2008, Christie's Hong Kong will offer a unique collection of 15 magnificent clocks from the Nezu Museum. Made for the Chinese market and dating to the 18th century Qin dynasty, this is the finest and most comprehensive collection of its kind outside of the Palace Museum in Beijing. These exceptional and rare clocks feature the most sophisticated automatons, music boxes, and complex mechanisms of the 18th century. Timepieces were introduced to the imperial court as gifts from Western missionaries in the 17th century. By the early 18th century, the availability of Chinese clocks made at the Imperial Palace and in Gansu was already equal to that of the original Western imports. The Nezu collection is comprised of clocks made in both Europe and China. During the Qin dynasty, foreign governments and Chinese high officials commissioned increasingly elaborate and innovative clocks as tributes to the emperors. Each clock was unique and combined both Chinese and Western decorative elements. The clocks became the passion of the emperors of China. During the reign of Emperor Qinglong, starting in 1736, 3,000 timepieces were displayed in the palaces, and in all quarters of the Forbidden City, clocks could be heard chiming throughout the day. A scene at the Imperial Palace, painted in 1761, depicts envoys arriving with exotic gifts and tributes, including elephants and clocks. Today, approximately 1,500 timepieces remain in the Palace Museum in Beijing. The quality, attributes, and importance of the clocks from the Nezu Museum make it likely that they originated from the palace as well.
在中国，我觉得是第一个，像这些钟表，可以从3个方面来讲。第一个呢，它是科技的价值，因为这个钟表在西方也好，在中国也好，尤其是西方，它是作为一个科技的前沿且最高端来出现的。那么过去在西方来讲，它有个观点，就是说这个钟表是机器之母，机器之母。应该说它是科技的之母，因为它把各种科技，你比如说地理学，对不对？时间、机械各方面的东西都糅合在一起，它才能做出一个钟表。因此，它是融合了各种科技各类科技、各种工艺结合起来的一个综合性的作品因此呢，清宫这些钟表呢，当时呢又是进到这个西方进到中国来是最好的。因此，我觉得呢是最主要的，它这个科技的价值，这是无疑的。第二个点呢，就是进到清宫来的钟表有个特点，全都是做的材料要最好，对不对？这个设计要奇特像这些东西呢，各种工艺要齐全各种变动机械要多，所以我觉得最主要的呢，体现的它这个特点呢，就是工艺非常精湛，可以说是基本上都是工艺上的杰作。再有一点呢，就是这些钟表在历史上曾经发挥了很重要的作用。你比如说，连接中西中国人和外国人之间的这种联系，对不对？作为一个桥梁，作为一个媒介，那么这种作用从钟表进入中国，一直到晚清，将近400年的时间里头，300年的时间，300年的时间里一直没有中断过因此呢，这些钟表在中西文化交流上的巨大的价值，恐怕比它的科技价值，比它的这个工艺价值可能更为重要。这次钟表是很有名的一个收藏了，在日本是著名的根津美术馆是吧？它的这批收藏，应该说这批收藏呢就很有特点。第一个特点呢，我讲呢，它这个里面有些个广钟。这些广钟在这个我们现存的这广钟里面是很典型的第二个呢，就是它的里面有些个这个 西洋的钟。那么西洋钟里面体现了刚才我讲的这个西方的钟表业对中国市场的这个关注啊，甚至是这个迎合这个痕迹，我们能看得出来。那么再一个呢，就这些钟表，我有一个想法，它可能和清宫会有一些密切的关系。你比如说它的改造的手法，一些钟表它并不是原装，经过改造，而且改造的手法结果从现在这个迹象来看，和我们清宫里面过去的这种改造的记载和这个手法以及结果，和我们故宫现在存的这些钟表如出一辙，非常相似。所以我想呢，它可能这些东西呢，是应该说工艺上很好，这个从代表性上也很强，这一批作品。应该说这次拍卖会，我觉得我给它一个这个定位了啊，就是牵涉到的这个钟表里面啊，就是钟里面这个数量多、质量最精的一次啊。以前我是没有见过，尤其是中国的钟表这么多的集中的出现，那么以前是没有出现过的。那么这次呢，我觉得这是一个很好的一次学习的机会，也是向这个很多的钟表的收藏者或者是爱好者，那么进行大家一起互相切磋交流的一个很好的机会。
The Japanese garden of Nezu Museum in Tokyo near the Harajuku. It took 5 years to build this Japanese garden. It reflects the essence of wabicha by Rikyu, a famous tea ceremony master in the 16th century. It recreates Japanese natural beauty.
根津美術館というのは実質的には私の祖父が集めたものを死後ですね、1941年に美術館として広く世の中にオープンするということで始めたのが最初でございます。日本の古美術を代表してたくさんのものを集めております。で主に有名なものはですね、仏教美術、それから江戸時代の絵画、書、あるいは工芸品、その他たくさんございますけれども、最近では非常に茶の湯の美術館ということで茶道具の多い美術館としても有名でございます。
Kaiichiro Nezu, the founder of the Nezu Museum. He was well known in the world as a Japanese railroad mogul as well as an avid art collector. In 1909, at the age of 50, after returning from his first visit to the United States, he named himself Seizan and started practicing the tea ceremony. He had reevaluated his own culture by observing Western culture in the United States. Seizan committed deeply to both practicing the tea ceremony and collecting artifacts for it. The current Nezu Museum's collection is mostly based on his collections of Japanese and other Asian antiquities. Budai and Chanmai in discussion on Buddhism. It was painted during the Yuan dynasty. It is one of the national treasures of Japan. Irises, from a scene of the Tales of Issei, painted by Korin Ogata during the Edo period. This is another national treasure and one of the most famous masterworks in the Nezu Museum. The Nezu Museum holds 7,000 artworks, including 7 national treasures and 87 important cultural properties. Presently, the Nezu Museum is closed for renovation and is scheduled to reopen in the fall of 2009.
この建物にも若干現れていますけれども、非常に日本的な要素を取り入れて、日本の美術を世界に発信したいと いう気持ちが込められております。ですから私の考えとしてはやはり、世界に向けて日本美術の良さをアピールしていきたい、そういった美術館にしたいと思っています。この身長時計は私の祖父がいろいろな美術品を集める中で、集めてきたものの一つなんですが、非常にこれは清朝の各皇帝が、作らせた非常に貴重な工芸品だと思っています。で非常に、豪華ですし、また非常に素晴らしいものだと思っておりますけども、先ほど申し上げました通り私どもは、日本の美術が中心ということで、中国朝鮮のものもありますけれども、この乾隆帝の時計というものは、今まで、60年近い中でもですね2回ほどしかまだ大きな展示会をやったことがございません。ということでなかなか公にする機会が少なかったものですから、そういう意味でやはり我々の中心となる日本美術とはちょっとジャンルが違うということを判断しまして、今回それをもっと広くですねいろんな方に見ていただきたいと思いましたので、オークションにかけることにしました。
Hello, I'm Jamie Collingridge, Director of Christie's Clock Department in London. Over the years, I've handled a number of Chinese market clocks, but the Nezu collection outside the Beijing Palace Museum is simply the finest I've ever come across. These clocks were made 200 years ago during the reign of the Emperor Qianlong, and they were made to impress. That's just what they do. They're made of finely gilded bronze, often embellished with enamels and decorated with paste gems. They look stunning when they're standing there on the mantelpiece, as it were. But when they get going, that's when they really have the power to entice. Whirligigs turn, automata move, music sounds. They look stunning and they fascinate. They have the power to charm even after 200 years. If I set one of them going, as I'm going to in a moment, a crowd will gather around. I imagine that's what happened 200 years ago in China, and that's just what happens today. I'm going to show you that now. This is one of the most engaging clocks in the whole collection. There's lots going on in terms of automata work. There's a very complicated scene down here. We see a figure fishing, another figure ploughing a field. It's a rustic scene. Up above, this gentleman here, well, he's opening a scroll, and whilst the music is playing, there's a scroll there wishing you long life. At the end of the episode, as it were, the scroll will shut again. All the time this is happening, we've got a waterfall feature here, and little balls are running down these runners. This elephant is a truly magnificent beast. It's beautifully carved. Up here we see the whirligigs revolving, and down below there are further discs that turn on the base. All of this is happening whilst the music is playing. It's beautifully modelled and well finished. Very nice multicoloured enamels here. It's a splendid piece of workmanship, very typical of the workmanship that was being made in Canton at the end of the 18th century. In terms of its automata features, this clock is actually relatively simple. We've got a scene here at the base that moves on the hour with the music, and up here there's a revolving petal. But what's really nice about this clock, from my point of view, is the exquisite enamels. These represent some of the finest craftsmanship of Canton of the period. The colours are amazing, and also these paste gems, they set the ormolu off beautifully. It's a magnificent looking clock. This clock we call the acrobat clock for rather obvious reasons. Every hour the music plays, these shutters here open, and inside we see a little figure of an acrobat turning on a wire. He struggles sometimes, but usually he gets there. Down below we see glass rods, spiral twisted. As they revolve, they have an almost psychedelic effect. This clock is one of the most complicated automata in the collection. It's very impressive indeed, and in fact at the hour there's almost not enough time to see everything going on at once. You have to wait for the next hour for the automata to perform again. Here at the front, the shutters rise, and behind them we see dancing figures. Above, there's the dragon, and his head moves. Meanwhile, here at the corners we've got revolving trees and revolving whirligigs. At the end, we see birds moving and chirping. All the time, this is spinning up here ahead. And don't forget, down on the sides, we've got water features with fish jumping. It's a simply amazing clock. This is a very complicated automaton clock. There's lots going on here. At the corners we see revolving trees, they're whirligigs in fact. At the top we see one of the finest automaton features I've come across on a Chinese clock of this period. These petals, they revolve, and at the same time these little blue discs, they turn in a different direction. The whole effect is incredibly hypnotic. All the while this is happening, down below we see a little automaton scene. In fact, there's so much going on with this clock, there's almost not enough time on the hour to catch all of it.
I'm Paula Altaby, head of the Chinese Ceramics and Works of Art Department at Christie's in Hong Kong. Christie's is honored to have been entrusted with the important collection of clocks for the Chinese market from the Nezu Museum. This is undoubtedly one of the most significant collections of clocks outside the Palace Museum, Beijing. We believe that this outstanding collection will not only appeal to collectors of rare clocks and automata, but also to collectors of Imperial Chinese works of art. The clocks will also appeal to a broader range of clients fascinated with complex mechanisms, each innovative in their own right and at the forefront of technological advance at the time they were made. Collection has been cataloged and researched by specialists at Christie's in the clock department and the Chinese Works of Art department, together with Mr. Guo from the Palace Museum, Beijing. A comprehensive catalog featuring 15 clocks from the Nezu collection will be made available to the public in May 2008.